Cowboy Bebop made its grand entrance in 1998, and the anime world was rocked with a tale of interplanetary bounty hunters, a mismatch of misfits aboard the Bebop hunting down fugitives for a payday, all set to the iconic jazz of The Seatbelts. But earlier that same year started a vastly different kind of space opera, one that wasn't based on something that actually might come to pass. Seriously, look at the actual setting of Cowboy Bebop. You'll realize it very well could be a possible future for humanity. But this series, called Outlaw Star, created by Takehiko Ito and published in Young Jump from 1997 to 1999, was not something that our universe could be. It had races other than human. It had magic guns. It was more space opera than most other stories at the time simply because of how much space was intrinsic to the setting. Science fiction with an extra emphasis on the fiction. That is Outlaw Star. The manga had a short run, only 17 chapters, which is kind of fitting because Outlaw Star is actually a spin-off of Ito's other work, Future Retro Hero Story, which published from 1988 to 1992 in Comic Comp, at least until it went on hiatus and continued its serialization under Ultra Jump until 1996. But still, Outlaw Star is a spin-off. Our protagonist is Gene Starwind, a real anti-hero because he's not a good guy. He's an asshole. He's a perv. When he wants something, he goes for it, and if he fails, it's just the luck of the draw. He's been stuck planetside all his life, has a thirst to travel the stars and hunt pirates, but doesn't have a ship of his own. His wingman of sorts is James Hawking, the titular boy genius whom Gene runs a business with. Starwind and Hawking clip. Good-natured, good with his hands, they make up a good cop, bad cop duo without being cops. Their business gets a call one morning and it seems like a normal-sounding work order. But running a check, something just doesn't feel right. The client's ID clears, nothing criminal. But the special parts she wants, James says are really expensive. He goes to meet the client, and it seems normal until they get attacked by weird humanoid-looking things. After James brings the space car around to pick Gene and company up, they head out of the city and James casually drops that the weirdos look like Pirate Guild. Subtlety or foreshadowing. Mutually exclusive. Then the pirates show up and their motif is goofy Taoism. I mean, Gene not so subtly says they're using Tao magic.
What the hell was that? They're using Tao magic.
Then we get to see the caster in action, a literal gun for magic bullets. Their client, who we now know is really named Hilda, double-crosses them by shooting Gene in the gut and taking James hostage. But Gene lives thanks to plot armor, it's only episode 1, and he turns the tables on her only to find a girl in her suitcase. This is Melfina, and she's very important. Hilda explains that Melfina is the key to some kind of treasure. That's why Hilda stole her from the pirates. There's more fighting with those pirates, and Melfina wakes up, and she has depressity. While Hilda and James have some kind of argument, the Now Quad make their escape on Hild's lander. This is Gene and James' ticket off planet, and they take it. Some world building, some fighting, some silly world building, and eventually our fourth main character arrives on the scene. The feisty cat girl Aisha Clan. She doesn't look like your typical cat girl because she's of the Catarl race, and they're animorphs. More story, and Gene finally stops being a pussy with daddy issues. And episode 4 closes out the intro to the story with Gene, James, and Melfina escaping on the very special ship that would later become known as the Outlaw Star. With the crew rounded out to 5 later on as Aisha joins, and eventually Suzuka, an assassin and unlikely ally. Space battles, fighting pirates, the galactic ley line, and why Melfina is so important. It's that kind of adventure. Animated by Sunrise, it has an art style right out of its time. It's very mid-90s. But you can see the base of series they'd go on to produce. Code Geass, a bunch of Gundam titles, and Gintama to name a few. Most of the English dubbing is done very well, especially Aisha, but the scripting is just weird. They often repeat replies and are pretty heavy-handed with storytelling through very unsubtle dialogue. That's just how some 90s series were. If you were to compare it to something more modern, then yeah, it wouldn't hold up very well, simply based on those repeat moments and blunt dialogue. But that same blunt dialogue provides comedy for the series. You're going to get serious with non-serious to break up the moments and make it less monotonous. It really is a wave of good and bad moments. The intro world-building narration is certainly some of those low moments of the dialogue. The script is just written like a lecture, which makes it boring to actually listen to. And the ending track Noon Moon by Akino Arai is serenely sad, like the kind of sadness you feel in complete isolation right before you begin to get comfortable with solitude. That weird, subtle shift where you're going from I'm really lonely to I'm okay with it. One thing that might bother people, because it bothered me, is how Jean's get-rich-quick schemes kinda drag Melfina along simply because she doesn't have another option. I mean, it's a trope of the time, not just in anime, but in Western cartoons. Cough cough, Ed, Edd n Eddy. Possibly the best damn cartoon of my childhood. And in a way, it gets both worse and better once Aisha joins the crew because she's kinda dopey but not incompetent. But Jean's combination of insane planning plus roguish luck is a plot device that turns a golden egg into a rotten one into an edible one. One of the negatives of the story is that it's kind of non-linear. There are episodes that don't really make sense for the plot save for emphasizing how James and Jean are always in debt, like the psychic cactus and the jewelry heist. They feel a bit like filler to pad out the overall series length, which wouldn't be too strange for a show from that era if you consider what a lot of other series were doing. Some of them deviating so wildly from the source material that they're effectively a spin-off. Looking at you, Orange Child.
Believe it!
Sometimes these episodes contain world building, but are just an excuse to highlight a character. This is really apparent in the second half of the series. When I think about the tone and style of Outlaw Star, it feels a lot more like Van Dread, but it predates that series by like 4 more years, and it isn't an ecchi. The show runs 26 episodes, so it's an average size for a mid to late 90s series. With an ending that was open enough for a season 2, but it would require a completely new storyline, since they play out the galactic leyline plot to its very end. Maybe something like a war between the Catarl and the humans because they don't seem to be on the best of terms. Or the Galactic Federation finding out that the Outlaw Star still exists, despite their best efforts to destroy it, and attempting to hunt them down. It could even be set decades into the future, leaving the audience to wonder what happened in the time between. There are some very real and very possible options for more story, but I just don't see it happening. It could also get a reboot, but I think the chances of that are on the low side right now. But would I recommend Outlaw Star to someone? Probably not. I like the series, and on my anime list, it has a high 7 with over 60,000 user score. But if you're newer to the anime scene and not familiar with how the industry was back before 2010, you might struggle to actually like the series. And if the obvious age of it isn't something that bothers you, then it's more than likely you'll have fun on this adventure, and it will probably lead you into other space genre anime. And that's really all there is to say about that. I am the NBT. This has been the Noble Weeaboo. Like or don't, sub or don't. Outlaw Star is tropey and goofy, and it's a product of the time it was created. But once every few years, I find it fun to revisit. Especially with the current lack of space-themed anime that's been prevalent in the industry for the past few years.